So as a male, when you're looking for a partner, someone of the opposite sex, you want to be physically attracted to her. Now, when you meet a woman like this, whoa, she's got some daddy issues. I would definitely say that for sure, which kind of is the case with ASAJJ VENTRESS. But I think I'd give her a whirl despite how scary she looks. I'm talking about if she was a real woman, not the statue.
I'll show you the dark side.
My name is Mr. X, and you've tuned in to the Extreme channel. We're looking at another Extreme collectible today. That's right, this is ASAJJ VENTRESS from Star Wars. If you're familiar with who this character is, this is actually even a different take on her. This is from Sideshow Collectibles. This is part of their Mythos line. Their Mythos line is kind of a fictional version of an already fictional character. That's funny how that works. ASAJJ VENTRESS, you may or may not know who she is. So she is a character from Star Wars, and no, not the Star Wars movies, although I wish she was. So before we dive into the Extreme review, a little bit of history about her. ASAJJ, kind of sounds like massage, doesn't it, was actually an orphan, and she was adopted by the Jedi Order. So as usual, the Jedi decided to train her as a Padawan. She never graduated to be an actual Jedi because she fell to the dark side under Count Dooku. That's right, if you've seen the movies, you know who Count Dooku is. And Count Dooku actually plays a pretty big role in the Star Wars universe, even outside of the films. But she was trained by Count Dooku shortly after her Jedi Master died. And he became her kind of go-to assassin. That is until Count Dooku ended up trying to leave her for dead, and she ended up going on her own as a bounty hunter. And that was a big part of her role. And this time, sometimes she would even join up with the Jedis, where in the end she was actually killed by Count Dooku, so it's kind of a sad story. Now, the reason I got her is I have a ton of Sith or evil Star Wars people right over there. I've reviewed quite a few. I actually own the Darth Maul from the same Mythos line. You can actually check out the review right here. So I got her to go with them, and I got her simply because she looks badass. So before we dive into the review to see how badass she looks, look how close we are to this giveaway, probably in the next few days. Thank you to you guys. We're giving away these two exclusive Mortal Kombat statues from Pop Culture Shock Toys. We've already given away this Sub-Zero. It's being shipped to the winner of the 15,000 sub giveaway. Up for grabs at 17,500 subs is this exclusive Scorpion statue. First thing you need to do is make sure you've liked this video, you subscribe to the channel, and you've hit that bell notification. Second thing is we're going to pick random videos. This is one of those random videos, and insert this segment somewhere. You need to make sure you comment on that video. We are going to pick a random comment from one of said videos, and you will be the winner of this Scorpion statue. So we're going to kick off this review with concept. And as we get into it, you know, she really strikes me as kind of a Gamora from Marvel. She's kind of the Gamora to me of the Star Wars world. And I bet you that really pissed off some Marvel fanboys, but probably not as bad as it pissed off you Star Wars fanboys. You guys are the fucking worst. But let's take a look. So on this base, you have a swamp, and this is actually the swamp of her home world, which is pretty crazy. You can see a bunch of different things on here. We're going to look at the pictures close with paint and sculpt, but you have this huge tree, kind of a swampish land, wrapped around a giant skull. Now, clearly, I don't think she actually killed this, unless she already skinned it and ate him alive, because it's a skull, so it's been there for a while, but it still makes the base look badass. When I want to intimidate people, I definitely stand on a skull. And she's at the top of the tree, standing on the back of the skull, and she's in what we call a museum pose, kind of like she's posing for a picture. Maybe she just defeated an enemy. Maybe an enemy is coming in to fight her because she has her lightsabers out. Her robes are flowing in the wind. Really the only action on this statue. And like I said, this is kind of a little bit different take, but there's a lot of this that is true to the ASAJJ VENTRESS that we see in the Clone Wars. And she looks very serious, very stoic, very badass. And that's what I like about this. She's very intimidating. And maybe that's why I'm so attracted to her. Again, the character, not the statue. You know, and as you saw, she's wielding two lightsabers. They are going to the rear. And they are red because even though she trained as both a Jedi and a Sith, she's more thought along the lines of an evil or a Sith Lord, even though she's not technically one. And I love what they did. She just looks very stoic, very badass. And I think there's a lot of cool stuff they did with design we're going to talk about as well. But I love the concept of her. I think it's one of the best concepts they actually came up with. It's simple yet complex. I almost want to say that it's brilliant. But they did a fantastic job. I think the concept's a 5 out of 5 on her. This is exactly what I would want. I think it shows a lot of her character without actually having to do a lot. So now with design, first thing we want to look at is the unboxing and assembly. So let's check that out. So the box was a little bit bigger than I thought it would be.
That's what she said.
Pretty cool art box. Here is the front of it, and the back you saw more of the actual portrait kind of from a different stance. It was one layer and it was packed incredibly well. So there are two portrait switch out options as well, and there are no exclusive versions in this Mythos line. What an exclusive is sometimes Sideshow Collectibles makes an exclusive version that has an additional switch out portrait or an additional feature. All of them are the same, but here is the first portrait with her hooded. Now initially I didn't think this was going to be my favorite, but it clearly is. She has a little bit of paint or drool or whatever you want to call it, almost like vampire-esque. I really like her stare on this portrait. Then the other one, the hood is down and the eyes are whited out, and then she doesn't have kind of that vampire effect underneath her lip. Both really bright red lipstick, and again, she's kind of hot for a bald girl. Now, as you saw, everything fit together really well. This is incredibly light. This is probably my lightest statue in this scale or around this scale. Speaking of which, this is 1/5 scale, which I hate. I absolutely hate that, because the majority of my Star Wars pieces are 1/4 scale other than that Darth Maul piece I showed you. So you kind of have to play with that with displays, maybe put her a little bit forward and the other one's back. If you want to see what she looks like in my display, check out the Extreme Channel Instagram and Facebook page. The link for those are in the description below. The one issue you saw me putting it together, it's very hard to get her leg here into the keyhole because you can't really see it because it's surrounded by the robes. And as to these robes, and actually a lot of the statue, she's a lot of PVC, which there's a lot of controversy about that. I don't really care as long as she looks good and doesn't break easy, so I think that accomplishes it. There is some polystone in here as well. Get her dimensions for you guys. Kind of hard to tell because there's stuff jutting everywhere, but the widest point is probably the base. It's about 9.5 inches, so that is nice about the smaller scale. The deepest point, about 11, and then the lightsabers are going to add a few inches as well, so you got to keep that in mind. And as I moved it really quick, you see it shake very easy because it's so light. It's not weighted very well. It's not going to fall on its own by any means, but just be very careful. And the highest point is probably kind of this lotus flower back here, a little over 21.5 inches or so, right about that. So I have no problem with how light she is. That actually is nice in case you're putting her on her shelf with a lot of heavy pieces, and she still looks fantastic. I'm not a fan of the scale, even though I knew that buying her. All the Mythos pieces are 1/5 scale. I kind of wish the lightsabers had a light up feature. I'm not a huge fan of that, but about half my Star Wars pieces have a light up feature on the lightsabers, and sometimes they're pretty cool. But I don't think that's a bad thing she doesn't have it. I do have what I would say are a few quality issues, but they're more with the paint. So we're not going to talk about them in design. So I think the design's a 4 out of 5. You know, what I especially like is she doesn't take up a lot of room and there's still a lot going on. It's kind of like I said in the concept. I think with her, the best way to describe her is simple yet complex. And you're going to see that in the paint and sculpt as well. So let's take a look. So on the bottom here, this swamp base, the paint is okay. It's kind of mixed together. I wish that there was more defining sculpt as well. You know, a lot of times you see a wood tree and you see some grain and stuff like that on it. Here, that doesn't look the case. It has a little bit of a plastic feel. That includes a small skull on the bottom, which is actually looks like the species of Darth Maul. I like that touch to it. I do like the skull of the bigger animal much better. There is some chipping. I think they could have used some aging in the actual skull with the paint to make it look better than it is, but it's not bad. Check out her feet here. This is where, I don't know what's going on here, whether this was supposed to be a dirty effect or just a horrible paint job on her feet. I don't like it either way, so I definitely think it's a miss on that. Take a look at her straps around her body. These look good. The paint's not super clean. Where it meets the blue skin, you can kind of see a little bit of runoff. I'm not a huge fan of that. You know, with this piece, there's so many layers and colors. I understand that it's not going to be perfect, especially when it's mass-produced. But overall, it looks pretty good. I like the color they use. The colors really complement each other really well. I like the dark shading of black they used in her red flowing robes, and I like the tone of red they used as well. Like I said, it works really good. I like the sculpt on this. It really gives you that wind effect, like she's standing up higher. And then along that, you can also see some buckles and straps that actually look like they're mixed media. They look like they're fabric, but they are fully sculpted. So really good job on that. And some of those, again, some issues with the paint and the bleed over because it's a really small area to paint. Check out her skin tone. She's got this speckle effect that I remember their Sideshow Mystique had, because this is, you know, kind of a similar blue color. The shading kind of changes a little bit, and I don't know if I'm a fan of this. You see a little bit of her anatomy. You know, she's not over muscularized, which is cool, but it doesn't bother me too much. I think they did a nice job with the sculpt. The paint's just okay on this. Check out this lotus blossom or flower she has coming out of her back. And I'm not an expert on this character, so there might be more to this story than I actually know. It looks cool though. It looks good. It actually looks like a flower. First, let's look at her bald portrait here. So I like the hood that's kind of flowing down. Same comments about the skin. I like the fact that her eyes are whited out in this one and they're not on the other one. It gives you something a little bit different. There's some paint issues by the nose on mine for this particular one, but I'm never going to display it, so it's not a big deal. I don't know how well it's picking up on camera. I think they did a nice job with the sculpt of the ears and the skull. And then even her nose and mouth look fantastic. And again, a lot of the same comments on the other one. They added the actual pupils in the eyes, a little bit different expression, not much, and then the drool or whatever the hell it is running down her lips, kind of giving that vampire effect. And I like that bright red they used as well. And lastly, let's look at the lightsabers. The hilts look nice. Again, a lot of tiny detail on here. Then I like the laser part of the lightsaber, where at the hilt it's kind of a mess, you know, kind of Kylo Ren-ish, and then it kind of comes to a fine point. So overall, on the sculpt on this piece, there's parts of it I like really good. It's kind of between a 3 and a 4 on the sculpt. I think I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. It's almost a 4 out of 5 because there's so much going on, and 3 out of 5 still means it's done very good. Paint is kind of between a 2 and a 3. But because the paint was so challenging on this, I'm kind of giving them a little bit of grace because I'm pretty hard on Sideshow usually. So we'll go ahead and say it's a 3 for the paint, even though you and I know that it's a 2. Alright, so let's talk about value on her. She retailed right under $600. They made 4,500 of these, and she is a 1/5 scale statue. That's not the best value. And it's funny with these Mythos pieces. Some of them you can get under retail, like the Darth Maul. Some of them, like the Gamorrean Guard, are almost impossible to get unless you pay 3 to 4 times retail. So I don't know what's going to happen with the value on her. However, I'd say the initial value of $600 for a mass-produced statue that's 1/5 scale is probably a 2 out of 5, unfortunately. I predict even though she's a pretty good statue, she'll probably be on Sideshow's website for a long time. Final category, does she have the X factor? You know, I'm not going to say she's my favorite Star Wars statue, but I would definitely say she's probably in the top 20%. She's very different, very cool. I think the concept really plays a lot into her. And then the different colors, not that the paint's done well, but the different colors, kind of the art direction like we talked about on the last video, is very good. So I don't give her a 5 out of 5. I would say she's somewhere between a 3 and a 4 out of 5. And now we'll be a little graceful this Sideshow again. We'll say she's 4 out of 5, even though you and I both know she's actually 3 out of 5. So thanks for tuning in, guys. If you haven't, hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Also, check out some of these other pieces from Sideshow Collectibles. In the meantime, hit that Mr. X logo if you haven't. I'll talk to you in a few days. Take care.